Hi, fellow classmates, instructors, and friends. This is Jenny, your humble TCM student who knows absolutely nothing about this field, but wanted to start this audio journal to record everything TCM. If you would like to join my study group as well, please come learn with me. And let's get healthier by healing our bodies from the inside out holistically together. Hi, Coco fam. Thank you so much for tuning back with me for another study session. Today, we have Jenny back with us to discuss another set of Zhangfu organs, which is the spleen and stomach. Now, I saw that on your Instagram post, food is such a big thing in your family, and that's what bonded you guys growing up.
Definitely.
I'm so glad you're so passionate about food and learning more about your own culture and learning how to cook more traditional dishes. I'm kind of the same way, but my dad is a little bit more secretive about his recipes.
That's so funny. My mom doesn't share. My mom cooks just from like memory. Oh. And so I've learned to cook like my mom. She doesn't have any recipes.
Wow.
So, and my dad always says, because I'm trying to learn more from my mom, and he says, you'll know by how the things taste. And it's so true, because when I make kimchi or any other Korean dishes, the things that I've made so far, I cook like her normally, just because I've learned from her. And so when I've been making it on my own, I'll taste it and I'm like, okay, does this taste like mom's? And if it does, I try to make it taste like hers. So I don't ever really follow recipes. It's really hard for me to, because that's not how I learned. But yeah, that's funny that your dad is hiding his recipes from you.
Well, technically, his recipes are also kind of like your mom. Like, it's also in his head.
Oh, I see.
Every time I ask him, he'll just be like, oh, well, I'll just make it for you. I'm like, but dude, I want to learn.
That's funny.
One day. But one of the posts that I saw you posted was actually a mugwort indomie. For those people who don't know what indomie is,
oh my God, it was so good.
It's rice cake, right? Basically, it's rice cake, and the texture is kind of like mochi.
Yeah.
God, I love mochi.
Oh my God, so good.
I mean,
black sesame. Ugh.
Yeah, with black sesame. I didn't know that you could actually eat mugwort. Now, from our listeners know that mugwort is actually moxa and is being used for acupuncture and is very nourishing. So if you actually eat it, is it extra nourishing?
I mean, it's a food herb, right? So yeah, definitely. I mean, it has a distinct flavor to it. It's subtle, but I can definitely taste it. Yeah, so my mom cooks with it a lot, and mostly for like the sweet rice cake dishes. But I like the flavor, and I think it's really delicious, and it reminds me of my mom. So I like cooking with it. It reminds me of home.
That's nice. So I truly believe that the quote, "You are what you eat," and what you put into your body like reflects so much on how healthy you are as an individual. So this is like great lead up to like what we're going to be talking about, which is the spleen and the stomach. So for the listeners out there, the spleen is actually the Zhang organ, which is yin in nature, and the stomach is actually the Fu organ, which is yang in nature. I was wondering if you could explain the functions of each one, because when I was learning the fundamentals for TCM, they didn't really separate the two. And it's kind of morphed together in terms of the functionalities. So I was wondering if you could break it down for us in terms of what the Zhang organ, which is the spleen, do, and the Fu organ, which is the stomach. What does that do in terms of the TCM perspective?
Yeah, so the foundation of everything is based on yin and yang theory, right? So everything is polar in nature. And we have the Zhang organs and the Fu organs. And the Zhang, as you said, are more yin in nature. So we think of the yin as more of like a vessel, receptive. Yin, it holds the essence, the vital substances produced from the body after we eat after digestion. And it's only the purifying fluids like blood and yin and those material substances that is held in these sort of vessels, if you will, the organs, right? And they're always full and plenty. And the yin organs are the spleen, the lungs, the heart, kidney, liver, and the pericardium, which is like the protector of the heart. The fu is yang in nature, so it doesn't store like the yin organs, but it's constantly filled and emptied out. So we think of the bowels, right? We think of urine, the bladder. We think of the stomach, food entering and leaving. It has a more transformative action, like digestion and excretion, right? And the zang organs are the large and small intestine, the stomach, the gallbladder, and the bladder.
So in terms of the spleen and the stomach, now you said the yang organ, which is the stomach, it kind of does the action and is more transformative. So obviously when we eat the food and drink the water and fluids and everything, it gets into the stomach. Now, does that actually does its own thing in terms of transforming that into essence and bring it upwards to the spleen?
So the stomach has a descending function. So what we say is that the stomach has a rotting and ripening action. So food goes into the stomach, it gets sort of rotted and ripened. And then the spleen's function is to take those resources or that substance and then converts it into a pure absorbable substance and disperses and transports that nutrient to the rest of the body. So that's the connection between the spleen and the stomach. So the stomach has a more ascending and the stomach has a descending, because the spleen ascends that pure substance, some of that substance to the lung, right? And then to the rest, to the upper jiao, to the upper portion of the body, where it then is distributed to the rest of the body as qi and blood.
Now, from past conversations with different practitioners, it seems like one practitioner, which is Allison, we were just having this conversation on how it seems like the spleen and the kidney, in terms of the Jiangfu organs, are like so vital. She also mentioned that back in ancient times, there's like, I don't know, I'm just gonna call them tribes, but there's two different groups that like are fully like, hey, we're pro spleen. Spleen is the most important out of all of the Jiangfu organs. And then you got like a different group saying how,
right.
Kidney is like the most important because that's where all the essence is, right? So,
right.
I mean, what's your view on that? I'm just interested to know.
So those are different schools of thought, right, that developed throughout time. And I think that naturally physicians started to realize like, oh, the spleen is like, the all everything. No, the kidney is. And so I think they all have their importance. Yeah, I don't know if there's like a wrong or right. I'm not such an extremist because there are people that practice strictly like the earth school, like studying the spleen and treating the spleen as like the basis of our health, or the kidney. And I personally can't say that one is, more superior than the other, right? For me personally, I think they both have value and they contribute to the medicine in so many ways. And so if you want to go deeper into the medicine and study just the spleen, like go for it, But I think that there's a symbiotic sort of thing that happens, and you can't have one without the other. And so I think they all have importance and value.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my opinion on that.
For sure. I mean, they all obviously ultimately work hand in hand.
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, do you have thoughts on that? Or?
I mean, I feel like they all work together to make you healthy. So, I mean, it's not like one trumps the other, because if one is down, it's a domino effect on all of your other organs. So
definitely.
I mean, if one is healthy, the other, it's also a domino effect in a way. But as you said, like everything works together and everything has its own purpose. For me, I do think all of them are important.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that said, I know that the spleen and stomach relates to the early or late summer in terms of the element and season. Why is that important to know? You mentioned from previous episode that you eat foods to the season, so you definitely know something there.
So the earth element is considered sort of like a pivot. And so I forget if it's like the first 16 days or the last 16 days of each season, but it's pretty much the same thing. And so I think transitions can be really tricky. And so our body is trying to find homeostasis with the shift in the weather and, and all of that. And so digestion can definitely take a hit. In Ayurveda, and even in Chinese medicine, we eat lighter, we might do a cleanse, especially that pivotal time between winter and spring and going from summer into fall. Kind of like slow down and kind of refocus, I don't know if you've ever experienced that transitional time, and if you're still eating foods like summer foods going into fall, like your digestion may start to get a little wonky, right? And so I think it's taking a little time during those 16 days to either do a cleanse or eat some rice gruel or juk. In Korean, we eat juk, which is like a rice gruel. I know every Asian culture has their own type of kanji, but having some kanji in the morning and throughout the day is a great way to strengthen the spleen and the earth element.
Oh, you totally answered my question in terms of what to consume during those seasons. Okay, so in terms of flavor-wise, there's always a particular flavor that links up to each set of Jianfu organs. And the flavor for this is sweetness in the mouth. It's either you taste sweetness when you wake up or sporadically during the day, like randomly having like sweetness flavor in your mouth. Like that means that it's the spleen and stomach trying to talk to you. Does that mean that if you taste that, it means that, hey, you should pay a little bit more attention to your spleen and stomach?
Yeah, so just like you said, each organ system has a taste associated with it. And the taste for the earth element, the spleen and stomach, is the sweet taste. And when you're tasting it's said that when you taste the sweet taste in your mouth, that means that the spleen and stomach function might be disrupted. For example, could be excess, like you're consuming excess amount of sweet foods, and that could be leading to dampness. The spleen does not like dampness, it likes to be dry. And so it could be a sign, like for example, diabetes, to excess dampness. And so if there's excess dampness, that's going to manifest in the areas of the body that the spleen dominates. For example, the muscles, the limbs, the lips, right? So you may see signs there of dampness. So yeah, it's just a way that we can also diagnose, right?
So how do you reduce that dampness if you do have, those tastes, like the sweetness in your mouth? And to your point, like to balance it again?
So if you're having too much of the sweet taste, like too much rice, too many grains, too much wheat, too much of the sweet taste, like maybe even too much fruit or even certain types of meat, like red meat that is sweet in nature, you probably first and foremost want to reduce the sweet taste in your diet to balance it out, maybe a little bit more of a bland taste, I would say. Yeah. So definitely first and foremost is, I think, reducing whatever is causing the excess, right? That's like the most simplest thing you can do. And bland diet is a little bit easier on digestion and for the spleen and stomach. Easier to digest.
That's true. You touched on how the spleen and stomach has a connection with the limbs, your mouth, and your lips. Like, why is there this connection to those specific areas to the body?
The meridians pass through these areas, right, part of the body. And so, for example, if your muscles are weak, our body's telling us that we're not getting enough nutrients, right? So maybe the muscles are starved of some vital nutrients, right? The blood, the yin, the material substances. If the muscles are strong, it's reflecting a healthy spleen and digestive function. And then the channel system runs through those body parts. So through the limbs, the muscles dominates the muscles, and then the tongue and the lips, for example, right? Mm-hmm. If your lips are dry or pale, that might reflect the quality of the blood, right? So maybe there's deficient blood. If it's red and dry, maybe there's some spleen heat. So the spleen, the lips will reflect the quality of the blood, right? And if your lips are rose and moist, the spleen blood is plenty. So it's for us a way to also diagnose and to check out, okay, we know that the spleen meridian goes to the lips. What's going on there, right? So not only is it related to the meridian, because the organ system is a complex energetic system. So we're looking at, there's a lot of manifestations that we can look at that tell us what's going on with this organ system, right? So it could be that, if your muscles are weak, the chi is not getting to the limbs and to the muscles. There's not enough nutrient.
Yeah. So talking about limbs and muscles, do yoga, and you started when you were 15, you said, and having flexibility is one of the benefits of for practicing yoga. So this might be like such a dumb question, but
there's no dumb questions.
Does your spleen and stomach, like if it's imbalanced, does it cause you to have a lack of flexibility in your limbs? Or is it solely got to do with just muscle, as you kind of touched on?
I wouldn't say so much flexibility. I would say more like we're looking more like at weakness or strength in the muscles.
Okay.
Would be more related to what's happening in the spleen. I'd say flexibility might have more to do with the liver, because the liver dominates the sinews and the ligaments and the tendons, right? And those have more to do with flexibility. So I would say if the liver is compromised, you may see a person that's a little more stiff in the joints, right? And then also, interestingly enough, the metal, and the essence of the metal element is all about flexibility. So when metal is out of balance, we see rigidity in the mind. And if there's rigidity in the mind, we may see rigidity in the body, right? That's more on a psychological level. I would say on a physical level, liver definitely has more to do with flexibility in the body.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So for the mouth, I know that's probably doesn't include the tongue, because the tongue actually links up to another jiangfu organ. But for the mouth specifically, does it also include your gums and your teeth, like in terms of analyzing literally just the insides of your mouth, you know what I mean? Like, or does your gums tell you like, hey, if it's too red, or if it's like, as you said, maybe too pale, it got to do with like your chi and your blood?
I mean, definitely, I guess you could look at that as well, like the quality of the blood in your gums. But so your large intestine meridian goes to the lower part of your jaw, and the stomach goes to the upper part of your jaw. And so if you're having like gum issues, that could be reflective, or even teeth issues could be reflective if it's affecting the bottom part of your teeth. And gums, it could be more large intestine, whereas the upper gums and teeth could be more stomach. Now, the teeth are also, the bones in the body are connected and correlate more with the kidney, right? So what's happening with kidney essence and jing, and how is that affecting the quality of your bones? But yeah, I think definitely you can also look at the quality and the color of the gums, and that could be also reflective of the spleen function, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I can see that.
There's like so many different parts to it. Like you would think like, oh, mouth, the entire mouth, but no, actually the upper jaw is different than the lower jaw,
right?
And then your teeth is also something else. So, wow, okay. No wonder you guys had to go to school for so long to understand this.
Yeah.
Everything is like so different. You think it's like, oh, this one entire thing. No, it's like separated into like millions different pieces of information. So the last one, which is lips. Say, what if you got like cold sores on your lips? I feel like it's like such a common thing for people to get cold sores. Does it mean that your spleen is really off balance? It's interesting because it's also similar in the Western culture for this one, where it's like a weakened immune system when you get cold sores. So I don't know. I want to know what you think of that one. Is it because there's like excess heat?
I mean, yeah, to me, it's pointing to either like excess heat or maybe heat deficiency. And that could be stomach heat. I would look more at the stomach channel maybe for that. And maybe it's stomach heat from deficiency that's that's leading to, that could weaken our immune system. If digestion is weakened, then that can definitely affect our immune system, right? Digestion is foundational to our health. So I can definitely see that connection. But my knowledge, cold sores is related more to the stomach.
Okay.
But spleen and stomach, there's a strong connection there. So yeah, I would say it's pointing to more heat or deficiency heat.
So my question is, since there's like yin and yang to everything, say if this set of organs, if you were yin deficient, like what kind of symptoms or do they show? For example, can you actually recommend any food that we could potentially purchase from, I don't know, any grocery store to consume to at least try to rebalance ourselves a little bit?
Yeah, so yin deficiency is a lack of fluids, right? Nourishing the tissues. General symptoms are like sweating, especially at night, like dry skin, dry membranes. Maybe you'll see like dry lips. And then insomnia could also be a sign when the fluid is not sufficient. And if, yin deficiency many times is tied into blood deficiency. So that can lead to the shen is not anchored, which can then lead to insomnia, sleep issues, palpitations, dry eyes, and kidney insufficiency signs could be like, low back pain and such. So depending on the organ system, there may be different yin deficiency signs. But, think about like white foods that could nourish the yin, like white rice, pear, pork, some fish, and shrimp, and goji berries, and we have like longan fruit, and apples, and coconut water, things that are nourishing and plentiful with fluids, I would say, would be really good for the yin. And yeah.
Okay. So for obviously when we talk about yin, there's always going to be a yang. So what are some symptoms in the spleen and stomach if there are yang deficient?
So spleen yang deficiency, we would think more about like cold, right? So yin deficiency, we're thinking more like deficient heat signs. So the opposite of that would be cold, right? So because the spleen is also responsible for the transportation of the fluids in the body, when the spleen function becomes impaired, that can cause excess fluid development in the body. So that could look like, a coldness, feeling of cold. It could also be, so the fire is depleted in the body, so it could lead to also weakness. It could be edema, fluid backup, for example. A lot of times when the spleen function is also tied in with the kidney, so the ministerial fire, the kidney, if it's depleted, you might see also some low back pain. Other symptoms, maybe hypotension or hypothyroidism, for example. So eating more young foods is beneficial. Like definitely warm foods is better than cold food. And things like lamb is really tonifying for the kidneys, and beef, maybe some root vegetables and things like that would be really good for yang deficiency.
Yeah, that sounds like more of like what people would usually eat during the winter as well. It kind of makes sense if it's like, because it's colder, right? And you want to warm your body up with those type of foods as well. It makes sense. So I was wondering, what are some tips that you can provide us in terms of keeping these organs balanced and healthy? We talked about food and everything. Is that like the main thing that you would suggest? Or would you have any routines or habits that we could incorporate as well?
I mean, I think we talked about it before, but eating seasonally, I think is really important.
Yeah.
Slowing down, I think we talked about that, but slow, like even just the act of like how we're eating, slowing that down is going to optimize digestion, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And eating clean, make you know where your food is coming from. That's amazing. Like even growing your own food, when you feed yourself from farm to table, it's like such a different experience. But yeah, chewing our food, because digestion starts in our mouth. It starts even before the food goes in, like the sense of smelling the food, and that gets your digestive juices in your mouth, your saliva and everything activated. So slowing down, really being mindful of how we're eating, not just what we're eating, but how we eat our food, I think is really important to keeping these organs in balance.
Yeah. When I was learning about this, the practitioner said that one thing you should do, and it ties right back to what you're talking about, is when you're eating a meal, like as you said, you eat with your nose and you eat with your eyes as well. Like, don't watch TV while you eat. Concentrate on what you're eating. Intake it slower, chew your food. And like, as you say, like be
Exactly.
present with your food and, taste the flavors, that you have in your bowl. And like to really just take it slow and just eat your food and admire it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, and
cool that you brought that up.
one of my teachers used to say, Ayurveda teachers used to say, like it's better to eat like, I'm not encouraging you to go eat fast food, but like to eat like a fast food burger in peace and quiet and calm than to eat like an organic meal, like angry and upset, like the energy of our emotions also affects like what we're eating, right? So
Oh.
yeah, so I think that's something to take into consideration. But like you said, it's like a lot of us are multitasking and we're driving while we're eating or whatever, and it's like, are we really getting the best out of this experience if we're doing that? Because I used to do that, and then when I learned about that that's not good for digestion, I totally stopped doing that. So even if it's like I'm sitting in my car and eating and then I drive, at least I'm not multitasking and stressing my body out by trying to do so many things at one time, right? It's probably not the best thing for my digestion.
I mean, it's so true. Like everything, like in terms of what we talked about today, is like it ties right back to what we previously talked about, and it's like putting yourself first. Stop putting into the pressure of, just because all your coworkers are hustling. I'm not saying you shouldn't hustle too, but like put yourself first. If it's lunchtime, it's lunchtime. Don't have a meeting and have your lunch at the same time. Have some boundaries at work as well, because you work to live, but really work is just a part of your life, and this shouldn't be all your life. Like, I just feel like a lot of people right now, especially during pandemic, right? Like a lot of people are working from home, and a lot of people are missing their lunches because they just feel like they're at home. And then one thing leads to another, and it's just hopping
Yeah.
from meetings and meetings, and because you're just in front of a desk anyways, like you start to shift your meal times as well. So
Right.
I feel like it's very important to put yourself first and to just set those boundaries at work and, I don't know, with everything, like friends and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. Okay, so we come to this portion where I kind of ask random questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have one for the spleen and one for the stomach. So
Okay.
for the spleen one, I know that sometimes some people are born without a spleen, and some people would have to remove their spleen surgically because of some sort of illness that they have. As we talked about, I know like everything is important, but spleen is also extremely important because it does all the transportation and everything, as we just talked about. Like, so without a spleen, like how would that really affect your body? Like, I can only imagine. It sounds like, oh my goodness, maybe I can't live my life the way that I'm designed to. Like, I don't know.
So one of my teachers told me that even though an organ might be gone, the energy of the spleen or organ remains.
Okay, how does that work?
And so, yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's just like the energetic of that organ still is there, especially if you had it before. And so he was saying, he was like a Qigong teacher, and he was telling us that, you can do Qigong exercises to strengthen the missing organ.
Wow.
Or the energy of the organ. And so I thought that was promising, because I think he had his spleen taken out, and he used to always talk about that. And I thought that was really cool. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like the energetically, it's still there, even though it may not physically be there. I do know a few exercises that you can do for the organ systems, but that focusing on each organ system. So you can probably do one that focuses on the spleen and stomach. And that might help strengthen the energy of that organ.
Yeah, that's really good to know, because I'm like thinking, like sometimes as you age, things might have to be removed, and it's nice to know that you can actually keep that energy going. with different types of
For sure.
exercises and everything. So
Yeah.
it's good to know, because I'm like
Yeah.
thinking, I'm like, oh my God, like if that happens, then you're screwed. Because everything's supposed to work hand in hand, right? As we said, if one leaves the building, you're like, oh my God, I'm having a missing puzzle piece, you know? Like it's not whole anymore,
Mm.
it seems like. But it's good to know that we're not screwed.
Yeah, the body is really great at sort of compensating and finding homeostasis and doing whatever it needs to do that, right? So, yeah, just got to trust the body to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, to, I guess, rebalance ourselves, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so my second question is in regards to popular diets and the stomach. There's two that I want to ask. One is intermittent fasting. Now that became like such a phenomenon for everyone, including famous celebrities like Jennifer Aniston and Halle Berry. They're all raving over it and how like, oh my God, like the benefits are amazing, and how like the key habit, like it's the key habit that they do and to stay in shape basically. Like, is this actually good for our stomach? Like overall, like for our well-being, is this actually good? Because I hear mixed reviews.
I know it's effective, but I guess my personal thing, and just from what I know about Eastern medicine, is everything in balance, right? Nothing extreme is good for the body. And I did ask my teacher about it once, and she thinks it's not good for the gallbladder because it stops it from producing bile, and if it can become deficient, and so it can start to produce like gallstones and stuff like that. She thinks it can lead to like gallstone formations, like later on, if you've been doing it for a long time. So she doesn't think it's like the best thing. And just intuitively, I don't know, all the organs each has there's a rhythmic flow. Each organ dominates a certain time of the day. And so I don't know, I just wonder what's happening when, you're like not eating till like 1 or something like that, how that affects the whole rhythmic flow of digestion and elimination and such. And so, I think my rule of thumb is like everything in balance, like nothing too extreme. And it just seems a little extreme. And especially when things become a fad, I question it.
Yeah.
Because that's how our culture works. Like, oh my God, green juices. Like, okay, yeah, green juice is great, but it may not be great for like everybody. And during every, maybe it's great in the summer, but maybe it's not great in the winter or something like that, So I definitely question fads. Yeah, I definitely question fads and what's going on here, especially when it's like to lose weight.
Yeah, I feel like it also counters like traditional Chinese medicine in terms of there's specific time slots for each organ, right? And then there's like time slots where it's the best time for you to eat. Like, like you should hit up those times in order, if you want to really optimize yourself, I guess. And I feel like with intermittent fasting, like it kind of defeats that purpose. You're missing your time slots.
Yeah, it just seems kind of extreme to me.
That's very true. I mean, that goes right into the second diet that I wanted to talk about, which is the keto diet as well, which is also such a huge thing, which is basically it's like high in protein and really low in carbs. Now, you said a few times that like, hey, you know what? Congee is very like rice porridge is really good for the spleen and stuff. With this diet, I don't think those people can have that.
No, right. It's devoid of most carbohydrates, which includes also vegetables. I think keto diet, you can have a certain amount of vegetables a day. But I think the issue with a lot of these, like keto diet or whatever diet people are doing, is that I don't know if people are doing it correctly, first and foremost. And so I don't know if people are getting the best out of it. And I think that, again, it's extreme diet. And I think that if you can do things in balance and manage like your portion sizes and eat more well-rounded, your plate is filled with like more well-rounded, balanced food choices, then you might not have an issue with, your weight or whatever it is that you're working on. But I think everything in balance kind of comes back to that.
Yeah. Like it's kind of crazy how like our society is just so so into these extreme things and everything,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's time to, like, they just get so much traction for some reason. But yeah, it's true. Like anything that's too extreme is probably not that great for you. Like the results can come really quickly and can leave very quickly as well.
Yes, exactly. I think there's a yo-yo thing that can happen, and keto is, I don't think it's a sustainable thing long term.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like personally, I feel like in a way it doesn't really make sense. Okay, well, thank you so much for breaking down. You see what I did there? Breaking
Yeah,
down,
you're welcome.
breaking down the spleen and stomach for us today. It's really good to talk to you. It's great to understand the fundamentals of everything, so then we can have a better understanding of our own bodies and how to heal it holistically, right? So I do appreciate you so, so much. Can you let our listeners know where they could find you in terms of your services and your IG handle and everything?
Yeah, so I'm in the midst of working on my new website, but it's the same website I have now, Jenny Ahn Wellness, and you can find me on Instagram at Jenny Ahn Wellness as well. Same thing, Jenny Ahn Wellness.
Perfect. I'll definitely put this on my Instagram post as well. And also, obviously, I'm definitely going to tag you and have it in the show notes and everything.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. So if you are in California and seeking for her services after birth, I highly recommend. So, I mean,
Aww.
yeah, without further ado, I guess that wraps up our episode of the Spleen and Stomach. So nice to have you on.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you. So, as always, please stay healthy and warm out there, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
If you like this episode, please give it a like. If you would like to hear future episodes, please subscribe. Or if you have any questions about health, please send me an email at kuko.health@gmail.com, which is KUKO.health. If you just want to say hi or drop me a DM on Instagram, come follow me at kuko.health, which is, again, KUKO.health. Thank you so, so much for listening to me today. And please stay warm and healthy out there. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.